when you send receivers in to sell up new developments, they might be units, they might be industrial building or something. When those buildings are sold, they are sold with a GST component, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Why has Bankwest been so reluctant? Because the receivers were selling these joints up and giving you all the money after their fees. Why has Bankwest been so reluctant to hand over that GST component to the Australian Taxation Office?
I'm not aware that we have been.
Let me bring you to. Let me make you aware of it.
Okay.
Lauderdale Project Proprietary Limited and Bank of Western Australia. The sale went through for $9 million. Bankwest agreed to the sale contract. There was $900,000 of GST, so the sale price was $9.9 million. The receiver gave Bankwest the $9.9 million. If Lauderdale didn't get the $900,000, they couldn't pay it to the Australian Taxation Office in their quarterly or monthly or BAS when they do it. You held on to the money. You would not hand over that $900,000. So what happened? The parties and Bankwest agreed to this, called in a bloke called Ron Merkel, a former judge. And you agreed to abide by Mr Merkel's decision as an expert, not a mediation. And Mr Merkel ruled, this is the issues. Bankwest held a registered mortgage over the property. Dispute now exists between Bankwest and Lauderdale as to whether the GST amount is payable to Bankwest or to the ATO, Australian Taxation Office. Bankwest was required to discharge its mortgage over the property. Bankwest and Lauderdale have agreed to resolve this dispute. He makes a decision. He says, the amount payable to Bankwest and Lauderdale to enable the pay GST. Accordingly, the GST amount is required to be paid by the stakeholder to Lauderdale to enable it to meet its liability to the Australian Tax Office in respect of GST. He gives court cases as examples. He says, the GST amount is properly to be regarded as an expense occasioned by the sale rather than as part of the purchase price payable to the vendor of the sale. He goes on to say, the special circumstances described above evidence a clear intention of the part of the purchaser, Lauderdale and Bankwest, that GST amount was to be paid to Lauderdale. He goes on to say, Bankwest, a secured creditor under its mortgage and charge, is not entitled to the GST amount in priority to the ATO as the date of completion of the sale or at any time thereafter, and the payment of the GST amount to Bankwest without making provisions for the payment to the Australian Taxation Office of the GST due on the sale of the property will, in the circumstances of the present matter, be unlawful. Now I put it to you that these receivers that have sold up so many of your customers have collected the GST component, and I believe you've still got a lot of it, in the tune of probably hundreds of millions of dollars. Why did they have to go on for a couple of years? Why did you have to get Justice Ron Merkel to hear this case? Why, when you got that $9.9 million, you clearly knew that $900,000 was a GST component. Why would you, as Bankwest, not hand that over to the tax office?
Look, Senator, I'm not aware of that matter. I'm happy to look into that one for you.
Better look deep, because I'm sure there are going to be other people looking into it as well. This is the thing that this committee must do as a regulator, and make clear regulations to see that in the case of receivers selling up commercial properties that have a GST component, that component goes to the proper authority, which is the Australian Taxation Office, and which is then handed on to the states who get the GST. And I'm very concerned about this very issue, about why a legal fight, it wasn't in a courtroom, but both parties agreed to abide by the decision made by, I don't know what his title is, Ron Merkel, who signed at Melbourne Chambers. I believe he's a judge, might still be a judge, justice, whatever his title is. But he makes it quite clear in the matter of the Bankwest retainers money be unlawful. And as I said, I think this has been going on widespread.
Well, it's probably worth saying that we're obviously committed to meeting all of our obligations. In any receivership, there are normally many creditors, and quite often it's complex to work through exactly what the position is. But
the GST component, I come from farming small business, is very simple, sir. It is not complex. You sold the property for $9 million. You received $9.9 million. We didn't want to give up the $0.9 million, the $900,000 to the tax office, and it's gone on for years until finally an independent expert has made a judgment. And what I'm saying to you is this. I believe the receivers have done this right through your network of selling these places up, these commercial properties. And I believe you're hanging on to a lot of GST component in those sales. And I want you to go through those sales, those contracts and those collections of monies you've had to see if there's a GST component there. Because if you hang on to the money, the ATO goes after the business you've sold up, the receiver sold up, and they're bankrupted. So they say, well, see me, put me through bankruptcy. I haven't got anything. I've been cleaned out. And the loser is the Australian Taxation Office while you retain the money. To me, that is very wrong and very un-Australian. I want you to go through that. No doubt there will be other people going through and checking this very issue, and no doubt as regulators, we need to be assured and see that this loophole, if you want to call it, is patched right over.
So, Senator, that's obviously one we will certainly look into. It's not obviously widespread. We haven't got others.
It's not widespread?
Not that we're aware of.
Well, perhaps they hadn't been brought to your attention of many of these receiverships. I mean, when you sell someone up in receivership, they just pack up their empty kit bag and walk off. They've got nothing left. I'm well aware of the insolvency practitioners industry, and talk about charges, you know. As I often say, Ned Kelly should have been knighted when compared to some of the charges they charge. But this is an issue that needs to be addressed, because the Australian Taxation Office, I don't think, would be impressed at all